Welcome back to the Douglas Murray channel. Join us for engaging discussions and insightful interviews with some of the most thought-provoking minds of our time.
Has the UK become a terrorist target because of its culture or because of the actions of its government abroad?
Douglas Murray.
Well, I'd first of all say absolutely not to do with our actions abroad, but put that in with one rider. If it were the case that because of our foreign policy people think they have the right to blow up people going to nightclubs and to blow up those fleeing from the first blast, as seems to be the case, then I'd say you have a choice in front of you, much like the choice we had a few weeks ago over whether or not Britain, the British state, has the right to decide who gets knighthoods, or whether crowds in Pakistan who burn books they can't read have that right. And we have the same choice now, which is whether or not British foreign policy will be run by the British government in the interests of the British state, which I think is the case, or whether or not we just allow other people who let off bombs here or in Baghdad or anyone else who want to terrorise us, whether we allow them to run our foreign policy. That's the choice before us.
But what's your answer to the question? The cause of the terror
is that the cause of the terror is Islamist fundamentalism, which is a version of Islam, a politicized version of Islam, which is wreaking havoc across the globe and has been doing so for many years, and which was aiming to attack this country and our allies before the invasion of Iraq, before the invasion of Afghanistan.
Douglas Murray discusses the idea that the UK's actions abroad justify terrorism. He asserts that British foreign policy should be determined internally, not by external threats. Murray identifies Islamist fundamentalism as the root cause of global terror. Should the threat of terrorism influence a nation's foreign policy?
You, sir. Yes, fire away.
Hi, well, surely it's a bit of both. I mean, without a doubt, Iraq and Afghanistan have exacerbated the problem, but 9/11 happened before any of it. There was obviously hatred and resentment against Western civilization before Iraq or Afghanistan. Look at the embassy bombings in Africa. There were terrorist attacks happened before.
Were there attacks on Britain before?
No, there weren't. But if you want to look, if you say that we're so closely tied up with America, then surely kind of our policies and theirs, it works together.
Okay, the woman at the back there on the two away from the gangway. You.
Do you think withdrawing troops from wherever all around the world now is going to resolve anything at the moment if you just bring them back out? Do you not think the damage has already been done? Do you not think that if we are going to withdraw them, then we should have withdrawn them before we started?
Do you think they should now be withdrawn? Is that your view?
No, I don't know exactly what to do. I think if we take everyone out now, then it's just going to kick off again. But if we don't, then what are we going to get ourselves into?
The man in the second row here, you, sir. Yep.
Are British troops in Iraq there for military reasons? Because there's only 5,000 of them, and I don't think they can fight against 100,000 or 150,000 Mahdi army people. I don't think they're there for military reasons.
Well, first of all, we're there for as long as the Iraqi government wants us to be there, which is until the area that they're in is secure, and I think we have to abide by that obligation. Two things. First of all, Ms McCall referred to that not having read the Hamas Charter. If you are going to comment on this, you could at least do the people who desire to kill you the decency of trusting their word. And I can tell you that if the people who are attempting to bomb London and Glasgow and are currently wreaking havoc in Baghdad and across the world, if they had their way, I can assure you your own career wouldn't be going the way it is. You wouldn't be the woman you are. You wouldn't be allowed to do what you do in this country. That is the same, and that is the same for everyone in this room. And you should not be. And you should not take that for granted. And one other thing, I should just add to that. There's been a lot of cynicism in this room about this already tonight. But our troops in Iraq did not only go into Iraq for one reason. The people of Iraq had been living under a totalitarian dictatorship for decades, and many people thought that that was our fault. We get blamed when we intervene and when we don't. It was the same in the Balkans. We get blamed when we intervene and when we don't.
Next, a discussion on whether withdrawing troops from conflict zones would resolve ongoing issues. The complexity of British troops' presence in Iraq and their obligations to the Iraqi government is also brought up. Murray emphasizes the importance of understanding the motivations behind terrorist acts. Can withdrawing military forces ever undo the damage already done in conflict regions?
To say that it's not down to us, so I'm not going to bother this week, but actually everybody's got to make a concerted effort.
You mean everybody's got to agree with you?
Yes.
Why?
Because I'm right.
Douglas Murray.
Well, I don't want to make the lady in the fifth row unpopular by agreeing with her, but it is the case. I think this is just another concert. And look, it's no coincidence that there have been so many concerts in good causes. Look, never before has good work been so much fun. It's no surprise that, it's concerts that keep on happening. People get to feel they're doing their bit. I'm fighting global warming. I've bought a ticket. I sent a text message to make poverty history. And you feel better about yourself. But it's not enough.
Do you believe in global warming as caused by man? That's the point. Is it a cut-and-dried issue? Because
no,
poverty in Africa was a cut-and-dried issue.
Yeah,
they want to draw attention to.
This isn't a cut-and-dry issue. And is global warming happening? I think it is. But is this due to human agency, and can we change that? I'm not sure that we can. Okay. There seems to be a universal idea that it's otherwise.
The man in the white shirt in the middle there, if you can get to there. Yes.
Do you think government should be doing something now? Climate change isn't coming. It's not going to be in 5 years, 6 years. It's now. All you have to do is look at what's happening in our country with regards to floods to realise climate change, you can't plan for the future. You need to plan now. It's happening. It's here right now.
So we
hold on. There's a question of the government. Ed.
What I would say to this gentleman is that we are trying to do two things. First of all, there's a bill in Parliament to say that by 2050 and going down gradually over time, we have to reduce our carbon emissions by 60%. And for the first time, just like you have a financial budget, there will be a carbon budget. And that is supported by all parties. But secondly, and this is very important because Britain is only 2% of global emissions, for the first time, we have got all countries to agree that they will establish a new agreement on climate change by 2009. Now, you're right. It should...
Debates on the effectiveness of concerts and public gestures in addressing global issues like poverty and climate change are discussed. Skepticism about the impact of individual actions on global warming and acknowledgement of climate change are also brought to bear, as is the debate on human impact and potential solutions. Are large-scale public events enough to drive real change on climate change?
Effective if these pop stars, if they actually practice what they are preaching rather than come to a concert, sing, and then go back to their roots.
Right, let's take another question. Poppy McPherson, please.
Should the West now have a more sympathetic approach to Hamas in light of their involvement in the release of Alan Johnston?
In the light of Hamas's involvement in the release of Alan Johnston, should the West now take a more sympathetic approach to them? Well, Douglas Murray, you better start on that.
Well, the answer is no. Of course not. I'd like to know who it was who was booing in the audience. I'd like to know who the Hamas supporter is in the audience here. Hamas is a terrorist organisation which makes a fetish out of the murder of Jews. And I'd like to know who it was who thought that that movement was a good thing. This, incidentally, if you don't mind Jew murder, let me tell you what these people were doing just a couple of weeks ago to their own co-religionists in the Gaza, where they went to their next-door neighbours and threw people off buildings and shot people in the back when they were running away. And you think now this is a rehabilitated organisation because they posed for the release of a journalist?
All
because
right.
they posed and organised that to look good?
Saida Vasi, do you agree with that?
I don't understand Douglas, most of what he says. I mean, I appreciate the comments that you make, but Douglas, you make them with such venom and such bizarre language. No. You know, with bizarre language that it really doesn't help.
I'm sorry, you can cozy up with Hamas,
Douglas,
you can hug Hamas if you want.
Douglas, you've had your fair share. Let us speak. Saida.
It doesn't help. We need to look forward for things. I think that I actually welcome the fact that Hamas were actually involved in the release of this person, and it was the first step. But we must be very clear about Hamas in terms of moving forward. Should we appreciate them? Well, I hope that any organisation would help in the release.
We have next a discussion on whether the West should adopt a more sympathetic approach to Hamas. Murray voices his strong opposition to legitimizing Hamas, citing their history of violence. The complexity of international relations and the ethics of negotiating with terrorist organizations are also discussed. Is it ever justifiable to negotiate with organizations labeled as terrorists for the sake of peace?
By people in the and the person in the front here, in the very front row, in pale blue shirt.
Why should we be negotiating with a terrorist organisation? Because if we go easy on Hamas, surely they're just going to be pushing their borders further and further, using more terrorist techniques until they get what they want.
Okay. And you, not shaking your head in disagreement here. You disagree with what he said?
I think it has to be recognised that the suffragettes were a terrorist group. Nelson Mandela was a terrorist group. Thank God we negotiated with them. Thank God we got democracy for them.
Okay. And the woman there with spectacles on, yes, and I can't remember what row you're in, yes, with the scarf.
I think we absolutely need to be sympathetic to the Palestinian people. This is like the longest occupation in modern times. Yeah. Why would normal people decide to support like a terrorist group? It's because they feel like they've got no other options. And we have supported Israel for so long and for way, way too long.
Douglas Murray?
Gaza is not occupied. And to make the equivalent between the suffragettes never got onto a bus and tried to blow it up and kill as many people as possible. If they did, women might not have the vote.
Okay. The man in blue there. I'll come to you, Charlie. Man in blue there.
Let's be clear. Hamas has a popular mandate to rule the Palestinian people. Does this mean that every Palestinian is a terrorist facilitator? Should we just eliminate all of them? Because by calling them a terrorist organization, you're obviating the possibility of negotiating with them. If you just call them a terrorist organization, they're in charge of the country. Does that mean we should wipe out Palestine?
Don't say they speak for the Palestinian people. Hamas and Palestinians are different.
They've been elected democratically.
Right. Okay, Charlie Bell.
Come in, yeah. Okay, number one, they do speak for the Palestinian people because they were democratically elected. Secondly, and the other point...
Does he speak for you? He's in government.
Yes, he does, because he was the majority. No, not all the time, but I support him because he is the government. Well, he isn't the government by himself.
He and the Foreign Secretary.
Yeah.
Next, the dilemma of negotiating with Hamas, given their democratic election and violent tactics, and the comparisons to historical figures and groups once labelled as terrorists are further discussed. The challenges of addressing the needs and rights of the Palestinian people under Hamas rule is also brought up. Can a group with a violent past transform into a legitimate political entity through negotiation?
People in Scotland and people in England, why don't they pay tuition fees and we have to pay a tuition fee if we live in UK and it's all about equal opportunities?
And you needed the Scottish MPs' votes to get this through, didn't you, in the House of Commons, who weren't affected by it?
Do you want me to answer that?
I'm just making a comment.
Oh, right.
You can answer it, yes, you can answer it.
No, I mean, look, the answer on Scotland is that they get to make their own decisions about education. They made a decision to put more money into universities and less money elsewhere. That was their decision.
And the Scottish MPs decided that English students would pay tuition fees.
Do you want to get into the West Lothian question?
No, I'm not. I'm just mentioning it. Douglas.
Well, there's a couple of points made on this one. One is that social mobility is generally agreed now to have been down from where it was even 40 years ago or so. That is, the university, which was the way in which people, if they came from a very poor background and were very gifted, got out of that situation, was university, was grammar schools incidentally as well, which Baroness Warsi's party have opposed more of. It was grammar schools, university, a whole generation of people who came that way, and that's now going, partly because of the tuition fees, which put so many people off going to university. But this has happened at the same time as a drive to get more and more people into university as an unmitigated good. Mr. Blair put this figure at 50%. We want to get 50%. If 50% of people want to go to university, you want to get that figure, why not 60, 70? Why not have 100%? It's a ridiculous idea. Most people should not go to universities. They should be elite institutions where people go to study certain things. They are not for everybody. And on the Scottish question...
No, just stick with that one for a minute. Davina.
I was just wondering what right you have to tell people who should go to university and who shouldn't go to
I'm saying anyone should. No. I'm saying anyone should who's gifted, but you shouldn't force people. I'm saying anyone who's gifted
Did you say who's
go.
gifted?
Anyone who's gifted should go, who wants to go to university.
I'm not gifted, but I would have loved to have gone to university. I chose not to, actually, but it's a decision that I made just because I'm not gifted. I mean, what do you consider to be gifted?
I'm saying there are some people who are suitable for university and some people who don't go to university and have perfectly great careers without it. It's not necessary. You don't force people to do it.
Douglas, you made the point about social mobility. When you look at the percentage of people from poorer backgrounds going to university today, it is still pitifully low. Now, the question is, do you want fewer people from middle-class backgrounds to go to university than do now, and therefore the number to stay the same, or do you want the numbers to go up? I personally think the numbers... I personally think the numbers could go up, but it's the right thing to do socially. And economically, every other country we're competing with is seeing numbers going to 50, 60%.
Next is a heated debate on tuition fees and social mobility in the UK and the role of universities in providing opportunities for people from different backgrounds. Murray believes that not everyone should attend university and highlights the importance of elite institutions. Should higher education be accessible to all or reserved for the gifted few? Thank you for watching the Douglas Murray channel. If you enjoyed this discussion, please like, subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay informed and engaged as we explore the most pressing issues of our time. See you in the next video.